we wouldn't have worn like a I hate Hillary dress or anything negative. We didn't want to do anything because it's not about that, but we just want to show love and support for the president. And it really, that's what took off like gangbusters.
Tired of the negativity on the news? Ready to focus on creation and make some moves? The world is our canvas. It's not even a fight. Artists, it's time to take flight. Welcome to Super Artists. I'm your host, David Carus. On today's episode, I have a true Renaissance woman, a singer who has shot to #1 in the world, actress, model, activist. I have Joy Villa.
Hello. It's such an honor to be here with you, David.
Well, thanks for taking the time out. I mean, this is really special because, I think that your story is super unique. I think that everywhere that you go, you just create amazing effects. And I really want to be able to share your story with our listeners so that they can kind of, get a feel for what your journey's been like.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So let's get started just from, in the beginning, like where did you grow up? Like what was life like when you were a kid?
Well, I grew up in Santa Barbara. I basically grew up everywhere. My origin story is like it's kind of all over the place. It's funny. I always have this. But I was born in Orange County, and then we moved a lot because my dad was a minister and my mom was a gospel singer, and he also did fundraising for different charities. So we moved all up to Northern California and we settled in Santa Barbara. And then when I was 10, we moved to New York and we'd go back and forth. So I'm like a California girl with a New York attitude.
That's awesome. So how was that experience like moving around and growing up with that sort of church background?
It was really awesome. I mean, my dad being a minister, an evangelist, Christian evangelist, and us, we had faith, we had music, and we had art. And we all co-created together. I mean, I had a very different childhood than most because also we had a lot of like sometimes my parents would pull me out of school because we moved so much and I'd be homeschooled and my mom homeschooled me for a few years, like just randomly. And so some days I remember being at school with my mom, and what me and my brothers did, I have an older brother and younger brother, is we wrote poetry all day. Like
Mm.
that was our class. My mom was like, write poetry about anything you want. And we were out in the backyard on blankets in the beautiful California sunshine, and we just wrote poems all day. And then we had to say the poems to each other. So it was really cool, very alternative to I think how most kids have school. And of course I also did some traditional school. I went to private school. I went to just a different, I've kind of sampled every style of schooling.
Okay.
So that was different. It was unique.
And how was it when you were in those schools versus being homeschooled by your mom?
What I loved about being homeschooled is that I really got a chance to develop my creativity, and I got to know my mom a lot. She was a stay-at-home mom, a gospel singer, a true artist in her own right, a singer-songwriter, and also she did crafts, like she did fiber arts. So rugs, tapestries, like she created all those things and sold them. So that was a really great education and a bonding experience. But I missed other kids. So when I was in regular school, it was kind of a shock, to be honest. I mean, I went to a private school when I was in kindergarten, and then I got taken out for third grade, and then I went back in, and then I got taken out for sixth grade. But I mean, every time I was in school, I was always kind of shy. I was definitely the artsy girl, the artist girl. I was very different than I am now. People would be surprised to learn that. I was shy and I dressed cool. I think people would have said that. We had this thing in class where you write a few sentences about each other, and all the kids in my fourth grade class said she dresses cool and she's a good artist. Because I
Oh,
would
that's awesome.
yeah, I would paint and draw all the time and dress funky. And I mean, that's still me. I'm still that little 10-year-old, 11-year-old girl who always draws, paints, is doing something artistic. And then I got into doing performing arts when I was 5, actually, and I just kept it up. My parents would put me in theater groups, and I kind of cultivated it within school and without school, throughout my life as a kid.
So early on, were there any kind of aspirations that you were like, one day I'm going to be a singer, one day I'm going to be an actress, like something like that?
Oh, big time. I mean, I was 5 years old and I was in kindergarten, and we had a play, a Christmas play. It was Christian, Maranatha Christian Academy, and we had a Christmas play, and I played an angel for Jesus Christ being born. And so I was very bossy with my mom. I said, "You have to make the wings right. You have to make the costume right." I was very exact. I'll never forget that. My mom never let me forget that. And so that was kind of like my first foray into how to create an effect for a show. It's funny that I understood it even at that age. And I didn't really think about it. It was just natural for me. Like you have to look right, you have to sound right, and you have to perform. And I'd practice. And then when I was about 8, 9, 10, 9 and 10 and 11 were my most formative years, like really 11, I knew totally who I was. I had this spiritual awakening. I was like, I predicted my future. It was really an amazing thing that happened when I was 11. But at 10 years old, I decided for sure I wanted to be an actress and I wanted to be on Broadway and theater was my life, music, dancing, singing. And so mostly it was like acting, but I was also singing and dancing. And I thought that, all of that performing arts was my thing. Even though I could draw and paint really well, I knew that I would not be a visual artist. That would be my hobby. And that's something I do for me personally. But my performing arts would be what I make a living out of. And I knew this at 10 years old. I was like, I'm going to be a superstar.
So what happened at 11? Like, was there some kind of a big realization that you had that centered around something happening in your life, or like what happened?
I got my period. True story.
Okay, okay, all right.
No, but that's not the big realization, but the true story, I did get my period at 11. It's a great question. I had some sort of spiritual awakening that I can only describe as I was aware of my responsibility in this world. It was like, in Judaism, there's the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah.
Hmm.
And I studied this later. I realized that a bat mitzvah for the girl is at 11 years old, and it's really interesting. And that's when you're considered you're a woman, and you're considered, you take responsibility for your life when you're
Hmm.
11. You're no longer a child. You're not quite a woman, but it's sort of this coming of age. And I had that just on my own, not being Jewish, but just having my own personal spiritual awakening where I just realized I have power over my own destiny. God gave me these gifts that I'm going to pursue. I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to help a lot of people, and I am going to be great at what I do. And it just was like this sureness, like I'm not a kid anymore, and I just can't wait to be a teenager and grow up and be able to make my own decisions and be my own boss. It was like that all came flooding when I was 11 years old, and I felt like God had given me open eyes.
Wow. Do you remember like where you were when that came
Yeah.
to you?
Yes, I was in Santa Barbara. We had gone back. We started living in Santa Barbara again. I mean, I'd been traveling around the country with my mom. She took us on a road trip. I had been in New York. It was after I'd come back from living in New York for a while with my parents. And I was back home and I was in my room and I was drawing. I had a big room and I had drawings and paintings everywhere and I covered my wall with them. And it just was like I was praying and I was reading the Bible and I was praying and I just felt like God just spoke to me in that quiet moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what just occurred to me is that when you're moving around and you're going New York to California and you're just kind of nomadic or something, right? Like I'm wondering, do you feel like that had any kind of influence over your idea that you could make an impact on the world because you literally got to go and kind of see this bigger world?
I'm sure it did under the surface, but I didn't really equate it with that. What really gave me the idea that I could make a worldwide impact was reading. Since I was 5 years old, 4 years old, I picked up a book and I've just always been a voracious reader. So my viewpoint of the world didn't really come from traveling at that young age, although now it does. It came from books. I would travel through books and I would just be able to shape my opinions on the world by all the books I read, and I read everything I could get my hands on. So it's funny, that's what opened the world up to me because I was still very shy and I still, traveling, I liked it, but I was also just like, I was with mom and dad and it was still very much in the family. I wasn't as adventurous in person as I am now. I was more of like a writer, reader, quiet kid, artist kid.
Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so, what were some of the things that you were reading at the time?
I was reading the Animorphs series. I don't know if you remember that. This was, oh my gosh, in the
Okay.
early 2000s, late 90s. It's called Animorphs. It was a series of kids who got visited by this alien, and he came down and he gave them the power to morph into animals, transform for a short period of time. And he was a visitor from another planet, and he helped the kids transform. And it was so cool. It was like racially diverse. It was like 5 kids. There was like a black girl, a Mexican guy, a white kid, an Asian girl. It was like it was really ahead of its time.
Oh
And it
wow.
was a whole book series, and they kept coming out. There was like 30 of them. I read every single one of them, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I also read science fiction novels by Isaac Asimov. I read Philip K. Dick stories. I read Arthur C. Clarke stories. I read a lot of Star Wars, alternate universe stories,
Hmm.
and a lot, mostly science fiction. Really, I was this little sci-fi geek. I'm still a sci-fi. A lot of people don't know that about me. They think but I'm a sci-fi nerd. I am a geek, comic books, the whole 9
Oh,
yards.
that's awesome. And what about musically? Like, were there any big, musical influences growing up?
Yeah, musically, I was only allowed to listen to oldies or Christian music. Very interesting. Or yeah, so it could be Christian or oldies growing up. So I only listened to Christian bands for like the first 10 years of my life. But I loved singing in church, and I loved the impact of music, and I loved old school rock and roll, which I would sneak. I'd listen to the radio, rock radio at night in my room, and I would sneak it. And so I'd listen to Led Zeppelin, and I'd listen to the Rolling Stones, and it made me like a rock and roller. And my dad would play me some stuff, and then my mom would play me some like Supremes. I listened to a lot of the soul Motown from my mom, and we listened to Diana Ross. We listened to, Eartha Kitt. Like we also all the old divas. We saw old diva movies and listened to old diva music as well. My mom was into Betty Davis and those old divas
Oh
and the sun
wow.
screen. So I was really grew up with watching a lot of black and white movies, movies from the 60s, listening to music from the 60s. And then as I got older, I matured, and I was like around 11, 12, 13. I started being able to listen to my own stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers and just different, 90s bands, Nirvana. And still, it was very rock and roll. I still love rock and roll. I'm like rock girl. Just got in and I was like, yeah, that's my jam.
That's awesome. I mean, hearing you say it and run those off, like I can totally see how all of that kind of like seeped into what you do with your music now.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's fast forward. Like, okay, so you have this big, realization of what you want to do with your life. Like,
Mhm.
how do you set forward and actually attempt to do that?
Well, it's funny because it was so natural as a kid, and then I just never stopped doing it. I made some decisions and postulates at 11 years old that I still hold to this day. And I
Okay.
knew myself very much. So I just continued to do that. So then in high school, I did drama class. I did performing arts as much as I could. I did dance class. I ran track. I was very athletic. And then I graduated early because I realized school was not the main thing. I totally believe in school. I believe in education. But I realized that the kids in my classes were not as motivated. I was 16 years old, and I was like, you know what? There's a lot of kids here who have no idea what they want to do in their life. And that's not me. This is not my peer group. So I excelled in art. I did as best I could. I made my teachers happy. I was a straight A student. Then I tested out. And I took the California proficiency exam,
Mm.
which you could do in California. And if you passed all the tests, I was already in advanced placement classes. I was already getting A's. I was creative writing. I was already at the top of the charts for
Hmm.
high school. I was in after school classes, I was in before school classes. I was really involved. I made school my career. I was really, really good at it.
Okay.
And also because the teachers were my mentors, and I always wanted to really, really please them. And I would be really ashamed of myself if I was late, and I was in Bible believers class. So anyways, I really loved school, and then I took those tests and I passed. So I graduated 16 years old. And then I went into Comcast Cablevision and started producing a local television show with Youth Network Television to 40,000 homes on the
What?
Central Coast.
Wait. So how? So wait a minute. How in the world did you do that at 16 years old?
I met somebody who said, "Hey, you should come. There's a youth network television. It's a local television channel show with Comcast, and we're meeting in this cafe, Magnolia Cafe, and you should come by." It was another kid, I think, from school or somebody I met somehow, and then I showed up in the meeting. I ended up meeting the main producer and his wife who ran the TV show, and he basically provided, local access, community access show, and he
Okay.
staffed it with all kids, from 13, from 12 to 19. It was like run by teens, and it's called Youth Network Television. And I just basically showed up and I had so much skills. Also, remember, I'm a reader, so I've read tons of books on acting, producing, directing, by the way. I read tons of stuff on that subject. So when I came in and got that opportunity, I already really knew what to do. And I just was able to just move up and become director of youth programming. I was written about in my local newspaper, and I got recognized all the time. Hey, you're the girl from TV. I just really kept applying myself. I loved it. It was once a week show, and I
Hmm.
did that. And I wasn't going to high school anymore, so I was able to really commit to putting quality show. We interviewed the mayor, and we interviewed like local artists, and a little like what you're doing, but on a smaller level, and in school. But I mean, not school, but school age. But it was definitely like a artist from the planet type of show. I would have had you on had I known you back in the
That's
days.
awesome. That would have been really cool.
Definitely.
So, and how long did you do that show?
I did that show for about a year, maybe more, maybe 2 years actually. I think I joined, I was 15, maybe I was 15, maybe I was just in high school, and then I had graduated, you finished, tested out, and still continued. So it was like 2 years actually. It was about 2 years. Yeah, it was 2 years, and then until I was 18, and then I ended up traveling.
Okay, like tell me about that. Like where did you go?
Well, I met my first boyfriend, Ed, and I was traveling with my mom. We went up to San Luis Obispo, which is just up north of Santa Barbara, and I ended up meeting my first boyfriend, Ed, and we just started traveling together. We just linked up, and my mom went back home, and I was like, "Oh, it's time for me to leave the house." My parents didn't want me to leave, but I was like, I really need to stretch my wings. I had cultivated extreme independent spirit. At 17, 18, I was like, okay, I need to go to Hollywood. I need to go to Los
Mm,
Angeles. I need to go to New York. I was really like, I need to get out of here. I felt claustrophobic growing up in a smaller city. And so we started traveling. We pretty much lived like vagabonds. We got a van. He had a car, and then we ended up getting a van together and working and staying in different cities at random times. It was really like a gypsy time in my life. It took us all around from California. He was from Seattle. We went up to Seattle, lived there for a little bit, and then went to New Mexico, Santa Fe. So I went through a lot of different states, and we were together for 2 years. So I pretty much road tripped for 2 years, not living in a place more than a couple months.
hmm.
And that was really adventurous. It was a great time in my life. And that was also a time where I said, do I still want to be an actress? And at that time was mostly acting. So I kind of
Okay.
like reevaluated, for a little bit. And I kept getting people say, "You look like an actress. You look like a singer." People would always say that to me. I thought, oh, maybe it is my calling still.
Well, that's cool. And then so what happened to kind of put an end on that whole period?
Basically, I turned 21, right? I was 18, 19, 20, and I said, I need to get into doing what I love to do is music. And I started exploring more my sexuality, like dressing different, and being like, okay, well, maybe I can be a little more controversial in some things. And I wanted to stay in Hollywood. I wanted to live in Hollywood in LA. And my boyfriend at the time, he was very conservative, and he's like, "Oh, I don't think you should. Let's get married." I was like, "Nope, not ready for that." He wanted to have kids and get married. So we had different paths. And I started getting
Okay.
into acting more in LA, in Hollywood. My parents had moved to Burbank by then. So they were in Los Angeles County, which was my dream to be in Los Angeles. And so I finally started pursuing things in Los Angeles.
Cool. And how was that whole experience like trying to land gigs and roles?
It was great. It was, it was actually like, I mean, because we had come back, when I was like 17, I had come back when I was with Ed, or 18 when I met him, but we'd come back to LA, and then I left. But this time I was actually staying in LA, and it was actually fun for me for the first couple months because I put all my energy in it, and then I
Okay.
started getting a little bit discouraged because it was very hard and very they wanted you to be very normal. Like they wanted you to look very I don't know, they wanted me to take the flower out of my hair, don't wear so much makeup, dress normal. We want you to look commercial and I struggled with that because I didn't really fit in with the whole typical look. And I have tattoos, and I decided, I really want to be myself. I mean, I did book some roles on Heroes, NBC. I was on a couple shows. I started doing background work, went with Central Casting, and then I booked some speaking gigs on Heroes and other things. And it didn't really give me like satisfaction. I wanted to star in movies, and I was doing small things, and it was a tough nut to crack out here in the city.
We'll be right back to our interview in a minute, but first, a quick message from our sponsor. Art Planet is a company I founded with the purpose of inspiring and empowering artists everywhere. At Art Planet, we make and sell products that are not only colorful and creative, but also fuel a movement towards combating the destruction of the world by focusing on the creation of a better one. Your purchases make this show and much more possible. Visit artplanet.co, that's artplanet.co, and explore our many products including clothing, creative tools, and artist resources. Use the code PODCAST at checkout and receive 20% off your first order. Thanks for your support. Now back to our interview. So that goes on for a little while, and
Mhm.
am I right in saying that this is where you start kind of gravitating back towards music?
That's right. That's right. So that went on for a little bit, and then that's when realized there's something missing in my life because I'm not happy auditioning all the time. And then I was 21. Then I was like, it's not really my whole thing. And then 2011, I was like, I need to do music. Let's do music. Let's try that because everyone now would say you look like a singer. And I was writing songs. I was playing guitar. I was doing music for myself,
Mm-hmm.
like art, but I wasn't sharing it. I thought, well, I'm supposed to be an actress. And I realized I'm actually a singer. I'm a singer-songwriter. That's where my voice, that's where I flourish. And when I started doing that, I started booking gigs. I met a producer who produced my first song, Cold Wind. We took it around. I signed up with ASCAP, which is the performing rights organization that collects money for you. I went to this artist convention called ASCAP, I Create Music Convention with my single. I met some cats from New York, some people from New York, and I was like, oh, I need to go back there. Ended up moving back to New York, ended up making more music, touring that music, really throwing myself into music. And I tell you, David, that's what started flourishing for me. And I realized, no wonder I was frustrated. I was focusing on the wrong thing. And I am an actress, I am these other things, but first and foremost, I'm a musician. And I'm a writer. I write lyrics and I sing lyrics. I'm a vocalist. And that's my first art. And I kind of figured my life is like a pyramid with music at the top. And then the other things I do music, then there's acting, then there's, fashion design, and then there's drawing, and there's creative writing, and then there's speaking. And it's sort of, but at the tip, is music and it has to be at the top. It's like a triangle,
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff at the bottom is not really, it's not the foundation. It's just more smaller things that are more spread out because I do a lot as an artist. I model. I did a lot of modeling as well, but my love and my passion is music, and that's what's taken me so far. And then I ended up moving back to LA. I ended up meeting my husband. I'm now married, and since December, just
That's
got
awesome. Congratulations, of
thank
course.
you. Yeah. And
So,
then
so tell
yeah.
tell me that story. Like, I'm curious because Torsten is like really like an exceptional creative powerhouse in himself. I'm just wondering, like, how did that all happen?
Well, yeah, because you've met him and you know him. Thank you very much. That happened because I was in New York living my life, pursuing my dreams and loving it. And then from New York, I met him actually a year before in Los Angeles, but it was at an event and he was photographing. But then in New York, I met him again. He booked me for a photo shoot.
Mm.
And it was love at second sight. I met him and he walked towards me to do the shoot, and we met in the lobby of Ace Hotel on 29th and Broadway, and this voice said, "That's him." And I was like, "Wait, what? What is this?" he's him who, and I kind of given up. I was jaded. I was young. I was 4 years ago. So I was like 22, 23. Yeah, I was like 22, almost 23, and I was like super jaded. And even then, I thought I would not find the love of my life. I had been dating the dating scene before that too, and I always thought of myself, I'm an old soul. So like I'm 26 now, but I act like I'm 40. I don't know. It's just I feel like time is ticking. I gotta get to do stuff. I gotta keep doing things. So even at that point, I was like, it's fine. I give up on finding the man of my dreams. I'm just gonna work. And that's when I found him, and that's when we met each other. And he's Danish. He's from Denmark. He's a great photographer, and that love at second sight turned into us sticking around each other for 5 years now, 4.5 years. And we started touring the country. We started touring 25 countries a year together. And I just thought it might be a liaison, just a, exciting, fun thing where I model for him, he takes photos, and it turned into we actually really love each other and have stuck by each other. And we're like, this is working. This is a partnership. And we started booking things together where I perform concerts and he does his photo shoots and his photo photography courses. And we haven't really been apart longer than 3 weeks. Oh, well, now we just been like a month apart, which is very painful. And we co-create together. It's the most beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, I've seen that firsthand, and I really admire how you guys have been able to align that and just make that work so well because I think that there's a lot of successful artists out there that one might be in a different field, the other's in the other, and
Yeah.
sometimes one person's on tour, the other person is somewhere else, and there becomes problems. But it's super awesome to see you guys being able to just gel like that and kind of align your purposes and make it all work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's the best. I am grateful every day that my life is the way I've always wanted it to be. I mean, if you would have told me this is how my life would have ended up when I was 11 years old, I would have said, of course. I
That's
would not,
awesome.
even though I've been discouraged in my adult life and gone, it's not going to happen. As a kid, I was just so sure. And now I've worked hard and I've gotten, and it's not over.
Listening to your story, it seems pretty obvious that you were going to make it, but were there like barriers along the way that kind of came in the form of the thoughts that, oh man, maybe I'm not going to do this.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, there was a lot of, darkness that came in my life. It was, I lost my parents; they passed away, and I had, a bout with drugs and alcohol for a while, just like a experimental phase. But I wasn't creating during that time. It really killed my creativity. I was partying and, just dating and trying to be the LA scene and doing all this so-called rock and roll stuff, and that really almost killed me because I was just so disparaged. I thought, I'm in LA and I'm not living my dreams. I'm not succeeding. I'm not discovered yet. I'm working so hard. And I was working so hard to book these tiny little gigs that barely paid or free work. But I would always be working. It was such a struggle for a long time, felt like forever. And then, and it finally, I realized I need to take responsibility for the art I'm not doing. And that's the music that's inside of me, come hell or high water. And that took a lot of bravery on my part because I had to just really go, okay, you're not creating anymore. You've stopped creating. You think you're all popular and everyone says you're so great, but who are these people in the party scene? So I don't always talk about it, but I got really sucked into that whole scene, and it brought on a whole host of low emotions and bad people around me. So I'm blessed I got out of that and got back on track. But some people don't. I always like to help people get back on track and remind them that you can do the things you were made to do and you have to keep going with it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
No, I agree. I agree 100% that criticism, the negativity, the all that invalidation that comes into the path of anyone that's creative and trying to do stuff, it just happens a little bit way too much,
Yes.
and it's great that you're able to persist and push through that and get to this place where it's just all working, like I
Yes.
because I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it just kind of feels like if you let's say tomorrow, if you wanted to go and do a movie, or if you wanted to go
Mhm.
and be on a runway somewhere, that you would probably figure out how to make that happen, and it just probably would.
Exactly, exactly. Now
Right.
there's no stopping me. Now it's like, and once you get a little bit of success, and there's been little success stops along the way, it encourages you to keep going. And now I'm like, oh, look at the things I've accomplished. There's no way I can stop. I have to keep moving and work even harder to keep it and to move forward and to do the things I still want to do. Like there's still tons of things on my bucket list, if you will, that I haven't accomplished yet. So it's always a journey. It's never like you go, okay, I've made it, now I can stop. I don't feel like that's ever going to happen for me.
No, I completely for sure.
You just keep changing
So,
your goals and getting bigger and bigger.
well. Speaking of getting bigger and bigger, what I'm really curious about is this whole thing that happened with the Grammys. I mean,
Mhm.
because I mean, first off, for anybody that's listening, there's really two that there were two times that you just really like skyrocketed in terms of attention and at the Grammys. And can you just kind of tell me that first time, because that dress that you wore with the orange, I can't
Mhm.
I couldn't even tell you what the material is, but
Oh, snow fence.
snow fence. Okay, I mean when people, I mean, it was like they couldn't stop talking about it. You just like completely blew up Twitter and everybody had their attention on it. Can you tell me like where did that idea come from? Was it from you, from the your designer? Like what happened with
Mhm.
that?
Well, it was my designer, Andre Soriano. He created the dress before we met. He had this gorgeous, amazing dress that he had that got him on Rihanna's show. Rihanna had a reality show about fashion, so it got him booked on that. But nobody had ever, worn that on an actual event that he just created it. And so he said you would be perfect for it. And we got put together through a few friends, and I was looking for a really outrageous designer for my first Grammys red carpet, and he was sent to me. It was a perfect fit. I loved him. I still love him. I work with him every Grammys. I wear something from Andre Soriano every single Grammys, and we have a winning combination, and he's just a sweetheart.
So was that like the first dress that he picked for you? He said you should wear this.
Mhm. Yes, he suggested it. He says, "Would you be willing?" And I was like, "Oh, that's wild. Yes."
So there was like no hesitation.
No hesitation. That's totally his creation, and I thought, "This is like it was made for me. This is perfect."
Oh, that's
And,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the really big. And I have to tell you personally, when I first saw the picture of you with the dress, which is the "Make America Great Again" dress, right?
Mhm.
The moment that I looked, I have to tell you because I haven't told you this, but the moment that I saw that picture of you wearing the dress, the first thing that I thought of was brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
I just thought it was brilliant because I was like, my God, she is gonna just completely get everyone's attention with that dress. So tell me, like, what's the origin of that? Like, how did that come about?
Well, that came about definitely through the same well, I'm a Trump supporter, and I voted for him, and I just saw there was so much hate in the media against him, and there still unfortunately is quite a bit out there. And so me and the designer, Andre Soriano, again got together, and he was like, "What if I made you a Trump dress?" And I was like, "That what do you mean?" He came up with this concept. And we always work together on the things that I wear, like, we go back and forth. And he said, "I just feel like let's combat the negativity." And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." Because we're both closeted Trump supporters. And then we wouldn't have worn like a I hate Hillary dress or anything negative. We didn't want to do anything because it's not about that. But we just want to show love and support for the president. And that's what took off like gangbusters. It was just incredible. So when I wore it, it was easy decision. Some friends who knew about it warned me like, "Oh, I make sure you're safe." My husband was like, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's rock this." And then boom, it happened. And it really was something that was so simple and easy to do to show support, but it really resonated with a lot of people, which is really incredible.
I mean, it's a phenomenal story, Joy, because when I saw that you had actually got to the top of iTunes. And
I know.
I don't know if people really understand what that, like how big of a deal that is. You basically beat out every other musical act that's on iTunes for like those several days.
I know.
You beat Beyonce and Lady Gaga
That's
and
right. That's right.
everyone. It's
You're so
incredible.
right. Professionally, it's been the biggest thing I've done in my life, which is so great. And it's not the end. It's just number one on iTunes and Amazon, number one for alternative and rock on Billboard charts, debuting at number 12 on the top 200. I mean, it's amazing. This is my dream come true. Doing all these things, I'm incredibly grateful. I have a whole new fan base of people that are just awesome, and now I just want to keep creating music and products for these people to be happy about and just keep rocking stuff.
That's awesome. So what does the future have in store? Like, what do you do now after, conquering the top of the charts? Like, yeah, like where are you going to go next, Joy?
Well, I'm going to just keep on conquering. Next is doing my music. I'm working on my new album. I'm releasing a new song on the 4th of July.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and it's just going to be wonderful stuff. It's going to definitely be a big time push to create new music and get it out there, work on some other new projects, try to get people together under one view of love, tolerance, and unity. I really want to heal America and stop the divide and get us together. So I'm taking different projects based on that, on my passion, and of course, I'll sure I'll be on a lot of red carpets. You're gonna see me wearing something wild.
Well, I'm sure about that for sure. That's awesome. At the end of every episode, I always ask this question, and I'm really curious what your answer is going to be to this because as somebody who's read a lot of books, someone who's gone out there and had all of these different influences musically, I'm just really curious what you're going to answer to this. But what one work of art, and this could be a painting, a book, an album, a song, a film, whatever you
Mhm.
want. What one work of art would you recommend every single person on earth go check out?
That's a great question. I would say undoubtedly Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. That book deals with the mind, what the mind does to the body, and how it really helped me, in those dark times, clarify like and get rid of a lot of negative stuff that had happened to me in the past, I had been through in the past, and I got rid of all that so that I could just freely create. And there's just incredible tools for artists in that book, Dianetics, definitely.
That's awesome. When did you read that book? Like when did it come into your life?
It came around 2011. It actually helped me realize I need to be a singer, and that a lot of this reason I was doing acting so much is because someone had told me you can't be a singer, and that was still in my mind and kind of stuck there, and I would constantly, think I couldn't do it. And when I read Dianetics and I went into the Dianetic Center and got some, training, and I realized that was just BS, and that's a lot of stuff from your past can affect your future. So I got rid of that, and I was able to do what I love to do. It's really why I'm here today, being a singer.
Wait, now, Joy, who told you that you couldn't be a singer? I'm just curious.
It was a relative. Is a
Oh
younger
wow.
rel is a young relative. I'm not gonna
Okay.
say their name, but they were very close to me, and I trusted what they said, and I thought they said, "I'm the singer in the family, so you have to be the actor." I said,
Wow.
yeah, they kinda did it like that, and I was, like, 8 years old, so I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was funny, it came up after reading Dianetics, I did Dianetic auditing session, it's talked about in the book, and that came up as the reason why I was so frustrated for a long time. And I realized I can do everything. Everyone can do whatever they want. It's not like there's a limited amount of talent. So I sing, I dance, I act, I write, and I'm going to keep doing that. And right now I'm focused on my number one passion, which is creating great music.
Wow, that's an awesome success story right there for sure.
Thank you, David.
Well, Joy, where can people, follow you and find out about new music and everything? Like, where should they go?
You can go to joyvilla.com. www.joyvilla.com, and that has everything on there, my bio, my music, and then also iTunes and Amazon as well. My music's on there, and you can find T-shirts and all kinds of other goodies and signed autograph copies of my I Make the Static #1 album at joyvilla.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Joy, and we're all gonna follow and see what happens next, because I'm sure you're gonna really create some awesome bigger effects for everybody.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate talking to you. It's a great show.
Are you a super artist? Want to be one? We've got an awesome opportunity for you to tell the world and win something cool at the same time. Enter our Super Artist Selfie Contest for a chance to win our popular artist training course, Super Artist Bootcamp. Super Artist Bootcamp has 8 modules with 24 videos teaching artists how to build confidence, how to promote and sell their work, and how to achieve a creative life. We pick a new winner every week, and all you have to do to enter is take a selfie of yourself holding a piece of paper or sign that says Super Artist and post it on Instagram with the hashtag SuperArtist. Good luck and keep creating. It's time for some art trivia. Last episode, we asked what Hollywood actor signed his name for the very last time on a speeding ticket before his death. It was James Dean. Here's a new question. What iconic singer was the first black woman to sing with a white orchestra back in 1938? Think you know the answer? Tune in next episode and find out. Thanks for listening to this episode of Super Artist with David Carus. This podcast is recorded at Art Planet Studio in Taylor, Texas, in the historic McCrory Timmerman Building. All of the music in today's episode was produced by Ethergun. You can find his music on iTunes, SoundCloud, and pretty much anywhere online. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your friends. We need more art and artists in the world, and your support of our show helps make that happen. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the future.